One of them I actually feel very confident is going to be the guy, and I'm going to preface this by saying I don't love it.
We were out from our friends at the Ohio Sinus Institute. Ohio State does not have an offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Yours, what happened to yours? Where's he?
He left for the University of South Florida
right before
at like
the playoff?
The best time you possibly could, right before the Big Ten championship game against the now national champion Indiana Hoosiers.
Would you say that
so
he
it was
felt,
pretty? It was
did,
pretty
did
exactly an ideal situation for us.
Did he feel focused in any of the two games after that?
If he did, it sure didn't look like it. And yeah, that is a complete mess. And obviously there are some recruits that have followed him to South Florida. You had CJ Hicks going. I want to say Bryson Rogers also did. I know I'm probably missing another one or two. A handful of guys going and following Brian Hartline. But now that leaves a huge hole. And Ohio State has yet to fill it. I've seen a handful of different theories on this. A lot of it makes sense, right? They're kind of waiting out the NFL. That's been kind of their MO the past couple of off seasons is grab one of these guys that kind of needs a fresh start somewhere else, whether it's a head coach that had been let go or an offensive coordinator that had been in the league that needs to kind of prove themselves again. They took a step down the ladder. They need to get back up. You saw that with Chip Kelly.
Bill O'Brien for like 30 seconds.
Yeah, he didn't even get to call a game. He was that high of a commodity. I would say Matt Patricia is one of those guys right now. I don't think long-term that he's a Buckeye guy. I think you're going to see him, if not next year, the year after, especially if the defense continues to play really well under him. You're going to hear his name being thrown around a lot. That kind of seems to be the cycle Ohio State has gone. So it doesn't surprise me that they haven't hired anybody yet, because I feel like they're kind of waiting the NFL out a little bit to kind of see, okay, is there a guy that we think kind of fits this mold that the name alone brings a lot of value? Because they're not going and grabbing some of these lesser known NFL guys. They're getting all of these guys that we just mentioned are top tier names when they were in the league. So it doesn't surprise me that if that were to be true, that they're waiting out the circumstances. But we're going to take a stab, or I'm going to take a stab at who I think they should go after. And this isn't who I think some of this is realistic. One of them I actually feel very confident is going to be the guy. And I'm going to preface this by saying I don't love it.
Okay.
You probably already know who that guy is. And it's widely rumored that this is kind of just the natural progression for this guy. So I'll start with him, Keenan Bailey. He's the current tight end coach. He was the assistant OC under Hartline, had kind of helped out there. There's been a lot of talk about him being internally promoted to the OC. It just doesn't move the needle. I forget who it was that you mentioned during the whole Michigan head coach transition where you said, like, yeah, this makes sense. It just wouldn't excite me. It's not a hire that I'm going to get
Jed
really.
Fish.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
And some of the sentiment even around that I think applies here too was Platt talking about winning. There's a difference between winning the press conference and winning the hire.
Mm-hmm.
And hiring Bailey would probably not win the press conference, but could you win the hire? Sure. But I would also look at it from the Michigan side, admittedly, not knowing a lot about Ohio State's tight end coach, but even just looking at the tight end play for Ohio State and going, I don't see anything there that would terribly excite me. Now, those are they're very different jobs, but I mean, are you seeing anything from the tight end room that makes you go, yeah, that's amazing? Like, so for example, Max Clare coming in, right? Max Clare coming in. I think you and I both thought this could be the best tight end in the country.
Yeah. I expected him, and this is going to be the homerism of me, I expected it to be like a Cade Stover 2.0. You'd get an athletic tight end that can go out there. I expected like low end 600-700 yards from him, and handful of touchdowns. And
there was just, and I did too. I thought, I've seen a ton of just phenomenal NFL caliber. Look at what Colston Loveland's doing in the NFL right now.
Mm-hmm.
Look at
not right now.
Listen, he is a legend, and you'll respect him. But look, Luke Schoonmaker and like all these AJ Barner, all these great Michigan tight ends that have gone to the NFL. And so I'm kind of looking at going, well, Max Clare on the rival side might be that guy.
Yeah.
And maybe he will in the league. But I didn't see anything from this past year that made me go, Oh yeah, they are really utilizing that tight end room.
Well, and that was, I mean,
and is that on the OC or is that on the coordinator? I don't know.
And I don't think it's because it's been lack of talent. I mean, look at Max Clare. I think Cade Stover has been the best tight end prospect since Jeremy Ruckert for us, which was back in the Justin Field days.
There's a name I haven't heard
and so,
in a minute.
And so, I mean, that position has been a group where I feel like G. Scott was a guy. I know he's bounced around the league from practice squad, but I think he was still a really talented tight end. Cade Stover, I thought, was a great tight end. He's in the league right now playing for the Texans. They've had the talent at that position, and it seems like every year, minus Cade Stover, it's underperformed. So I'm just not excited about it. I've not seen anything to get me pumped up about that hire, but I do think that's the most realistic. One name, though, that I've seen floated around every now and then that I actually think would be a phenomenal hire for numerous reasons, and this is a name that I know you hate, JT Barrett.
I've seen this one floating around too.
He's obviously a former Buckeye great, one of the best quarterbacks in program history. He is beloved by the fan base, a mature guy. He is a leader. That is what made him such a good quarterback. He's the current quarterback coach of the Chicago Bears. You've seen what he's been able to do with Caleb Williams this year in the league. I feel like getting him in there to help teach a still young Julian Sayin, to get him behind a guy like St. Clair to help kind of mold with that offense where you're at a really pivotal point right now where you've got Jeremiah Smith for one more year. Brandon Ennis is gone after this year. You lost a lot of your freshman wide receiver depth that you had been banking on in Quincy Porter and Mylan Graham. Carnell Tate leaves early to go to the draft. So you're looking at this room and you're going, okay, your best players now are going to be your young guys. You're going to have a Chris Henry Jr. that's a freshman. You're going to have Bo Jackson going into his sophomore year. You're going to have Julian Sayin going into his redshirt sophomore year. And it's time to get a guy that can really build into that and help develop a good culture. The thing that I wasn't doing this show back then when JT was still the quarterback. One of the things that I loved about JT was his leadership. And I think you saw that basically every single season. If you look at all the national champions, and it's going to sound obvious, right? You've got a quarterback that is a mature leader. You got Mendoza, which, I mean, for as much garbage as I've given them, I'm on board now.
You can't not be on board. They have conquered everyone and forced you on board.
I had been since that Ohio State game. I said that if they beat Ohio State, I would believe them. And every single game since, I picked them. I started to believe in them. Mendoza, I'm on board with it. He deserved the Heisman. The leadership that you see, I was telling our producer, Judah, right before we started recording, usually when it comes to the NFL draft, there are certain guys that you can see the raw talent and you can see the physical skill set to be QB1. But it's rare to see a guy that has that and the maturity to be a pro and be so pro ready. That's what I see when I see Mendoza. Same thing with Will Howard. I thought Will Howard last year was a mature leader. He had control of that locker room. I would say the same thing with McCarthy. And I think it was on a different level, but I think the passion and I think that Michigan team looked to him. And I think it all showed. Getting a guy like JT that knows how to build that culture with a really young offense, I think would be super important. You've seen Ohio State have success with bringing in their alumni. Look at James Laurinaitis. Look at Brian Hartline. They've had success of bringing these guys. Look at Mike Vrabel going in and getting his team to an AFC championship game in the league right now. They've had success at bringing in these guys that have developed into phenomenal coaches. It feels like the next stepping stone for JT to get in there and be that young guy still searching out where to find his niche in the system, getting his first real big opportunity at a place he's already super familiar with. He understands the culture. He understands what the game means. You're not bringing some outside source that hasn't already bought into the traditions. This would excite me. I know that it would cause a lot of people some concerns and questions because he's never been in that role yet. But this is one that I would get excited about, I would believe in, and I would 100% support.
Is Matt? Let me ask this on the defensive side. This isn't the question, but is the rumor on Matt Patricia? Just while we're talking coordinators, now that we're done talking about Michigan's rotating coaching staff for once, well, praise God. Is Patricia going back to the league, or is he back in Columbus?
I've not.
Is that still open?
For everything that I've seen, it is very, very, very likely that he returns to Columbus at least this season.
Okay.
I've seen that he wants to stay. Ryan Day obviously wants to keep him around. The defensive players love him. But I don't think that anybody's ignorant to the fact that like his goal is to go back. And so I think we've got him for another year or two max. And then I think you see a Chip Kelly situation. I think he goes and gets another job somewhere in the league. And then we're looking for a defensive coordinator.
Could I interest you in Wink Martindale?
You could not. You simply just could not.
That's fair. That's fair. The Rivalry Podcast is part of the Varsity Network from Learfield and the River Podcast Network from River Radio Ministries.
New episodes out every Monday.
Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening right now, and follow on social media at RivalPod and RivalPod.com.
And if you like what you hear, share with a friend so they can listen too.